An ideal human being. So this is part of our study of the compilation of poems that Swamiji has put together. And in the first installment of Pearls of Practical Philosophy, we took up approximately half the book. And now we take up the second half, which has some interesting themes. Today's piece is called The Village Preacher. It's a masterpiece because it talks about what does this knowledge look like. We've been hearing and studying these deep truths, these deep principles, but what does it look like in practice? What does a person who lives this knowledge looks like? It is rare in this day and age to find a person who walks the talk, a living wisdom, as it were. Oliver Goldsmith paints a picture of the village preacher who lives these values. And it's from a larger poem called The Deserted Village. And in The Deserted Village, Oliver Goldsmith makes a comment on how people those days, 18th century, 19th century, were leaving the rural rustic life and values for the city. Why? Why were they doing this? Wealth, acquisition, the search for a better life, more riches, happiness. And he questions. Now he sees that the village is deserted. People have moved to the city, but for what? Are you happier? Are you happier in this pursuit? All of us are busy, busy, busy. Doing what? What are you busy chasing? Is it making you happier? Are you more content with your chase, with your pursuit than you were before? So Thoreau says, busy, so are the ants. Ants are also busy. Is that a human life? What does an ideal human being look like? The word or the subject that we're studying is called Vedanta. It's an ancient Indian philosophy. The origin is from the Himalayas, where the subjective scientists, that is the sages and rishis who studied the laws of the individual, gave out a manual for life and living. And it's called Vedanta because Veda means knowledge, Anta means end. It's the end of knowledge. It takes one to human perfection. Now, if you and I want to pursue this knowledge, we should get an idea whether this picture of human perfection is worth pursuing. And that's what this study is about. So today we get to see the village preacher and see if the qualities he embodies is attractive enough for us to want to follow them. There's a similar portion in the Bhagavad Gita. Can anyone think which section?
Chapter 12.
Chapter 12? Chapter 12 is actually the qualities of a devotee of God, but you'll see there's a semblance. These different qualities are mirrored throughout the Gita and throughout different scriptural texts. In one of the texts, for instance, there's qualities of a gentleman given by Cardinal Newman. And you can Google it. But if you read that, you'll find, am I reading the Bhagavad Gita? Am I reading The Village Preacher by Oliver Goldsmith? Because all these qualities have a common theme. The section in the Gita that I was referring to is Stita Prajna. a person of wisdom. How does he
Chapter
act?
2.
How does he behave? Chapter 2. This village preacher, he did not need to move to the cities because he understood it is not where you are, it is not what you do, what you meet in life that matters, but how do you meet it? They whom truth and wisdom lead can gather honey from a weed. If you have the knowledge, if you have the wisdom, you can relate to anything that the world has to offer with happiness. We recently shared Swamiji's lecture. And in that lecture, Swamiji says the whole of life is just about perspective. How do you see the glass? Half empty? Half full? What perspective do you choose? What thought pattern do you entertain? And that perspective is your world. So you can consciously choose the world you experience. How? With this introduction, let's begin the study of the village preacher and the qualities that he embodies. So, can you see it on the screen? Right? Okay, perfect. So, we'll read the text and we'll stop every few lines to grasp its meaning. If there's any word that's unfamiliar, you're welcome to ask me. If there's any line that you're not clear about, feel free to question. So it's an interactive session, but we're ambitious. We've got a lot to cover this session. There are so many inspiring qualities. I've picked the main themes for today. The Village Preacher by Oliver Goldsmith. Near yonder copse, that's a wood, where once the garden smiled, and still where many a garden flower grows wild. So the gardens have been neglected. The parks have been neglected because people have moved from the village to the city. And there, where a few torn shrubs the place disclose, the village preacher's modest mansion rose. First quality, simplicity. This village preacher is frugal, simple. But is this a simplicity from a lack of awareness of what's the latest technology? Is this a simplicity from not knowing any better? No. It's a simplicity that is deliberate. It's a simplicity that is an effect of thinking. Leonardo da Vinci, the great innovator, artist, thinker, he says, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. The ultimate sophistication. It is not a person who lacks thinking, but it is a product of the highest thinking. You find those who are true thinkers, the way they live, the way they conduct themselves, the things that they choose, the processes that they follow are simple, uncomplicated, because their mind is uncomplicated, uncluttered. They have a reason for what they have. Everything is purposeful, functional. I hope all of you have the opportunity to come and visit the Vedanta Academy. It's open now. And we do have some retreats at the end of the year. So you can come for a visit or you can come for one of the class members' visits. We have one in December, one in January planned. But you will experience a place that's based on these values, which is high thinking, simple living. There is no extra ornamentation, decoration, It's comfortable, it's aesthetic, but every aspect has a function, has a purpose. What is the purpose? And you'll find anyone who lives these higher values is frugal, austere, not lavish. Why? What is the connection? Why are they modest? They may have the wealth. So the wealth is not in question. They have the affordability. So the village preacher, he has a mansion, but it's modest. What is the connection?
I think the lack of clutter allows us to think with clarity.
Clarity of thinking. Pranya?
They know the value for everything. They know the value to be placed
They
on
have the
things
right
that
value
matter.
for everything. You simplify when you clear. But another reason why you simplify is because you have a higher ideal. You have a goal. And when you're committed to that goal, you cut out the frills, the unnecessary, non-essential aspects in your life. But you've got to be inspired. You've got to be committed to this goal. And one of the words used in the scriptures is called tapas. It means austerity. Not the austerity of living in a cave. It means, how do you use your energy? So it's spelled tapas, T-A-P-A-S, not the Spanish appetizer. It means tapaha, austerity. What a quality. Now we're afraid of this quality because we think of a sage sitting by a tree without any shoes in the cold. That's not it. It is a person who knows what they want in life. And there are three aspects that they follow with respect to energy. One, they avoid dissipation of energy. So they don't waste it in unproductive channels. No unnecessary talk. No unnecessary literature. No wasting of time. A person who's productive will not go at the drop of a hat to any wedding, social function, social engagement. For what? What is the purpose? Is it an obligation? Now, brother-in-laws, brothers, cousins, child is getting married. Oh, I must go. Where? Italy. You have 5 days to spare. Lack of a goal. So you avoid dissipation. Okay, so you're not wasting your energy. But then you also have to conserve the energy that you have. You got to maintain it. But why are you not wasting it? Why are you maintaining the energy? To direct it and channel it in the goal that you've chosen. This village preacher, he's modest, he's simple, he's austere. But that's because he's dedicated all his effort, time, and conviction towards the higher ideal of helping others, of moving closer towards God and the truth. That's his goal. Now, we can practice this quality, but do we have a goal that is as inspiring? You ask Swamiji, Swamiji, when was the last day you took off? He says, I've not taken a day off. Why? Enjoy my work. I'm enthused by my work. So the first quality we learn is being frugal, simple. And that comes from having a higher ideal, working for something bigger than yourself. And we'll come back to this point. Coming back to the poem. Every line is a value. A man he was to all the country dear, and passing rich with 40 pounds a year. A man he was to all the country dear. How rare is it for all to love you? For someone to love you, and these are the relationships that we have now. It is not love, it is preferential attachment. So if one person loves you, or if you love one person, it is a preferential attachment. Means it's a relationship based on transaction. So you give me something, and I give you something, and because of this exchange, there's an affection, there is a feeling, we call it love. This is not love. Why? Because it's selfish. Eric Fromm, he puts it beautifully. When one person claims to love one other person, but is indifferent. So if you love one, but you don't care about others, his love is not love, but a symbiotic attachment, exchange, or in an enlarged egotism. It is an expansion of his selfishness. We see that. But this village preacher, because he has no preferential attachment, because he does not want anything from others, he loves all. And because that love is universal, because that love is a feeling that he expresses to everyone and everything, it is reciprocal. It's reciprocated. He feels it. A man he was to all the country dear. You know what's the secret to being loved? It's very simple. Be unselfish. And why will you be attractive? Why will others love you? Why will others court you? And it's as simple as this. When you're a giver, who do you look for? Suppose Paresh and myself are givers. Say, Paresh, I want to give you something. Paresh say, no, 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 no. Sudhakar, I want to give you something. And we're arguing. Who can give who? It's a beautiful argument. But a giver looks for takers. Who can I give to? I want somebody who can take. Interestingly, or very simply put, naturally, who does a taker want? Does a taker want other takers? Why are we not attracted to selfish people? Because we're worried that they will take from us. Because it means we're also takers. They will take our time, they'll take our money, they'll take our resources. We always have this suspicion. But who do takers look forward to? Givers. Because most of the world are takers. They are attracted to givers. So simple. If you want to be attracted, be unselfish. So the second quality is let your love not have any bounds, no boundaries. Let it flow. Why must it be preferential? You might say, but it's my child, my partner. No one's debating that. Okay, you can put a sticker on the back of their t-shirt. This is a possession of Pranya. This belongs to Rohini. Who? Your children, your spouse. You can put the sticker there. Nobody's debating that aspect. What we're debating is, why should your feelings stop there? So no doubt, we have an obligation to our children, to our spouse, to our students, to our patients, clients. But why should the feeling stop with that circle? Let the feeling flow. This is what the village preacher has. A man he was to all the country dear, passing rich with 40 pounds a year. Now, I'm not sure what the equivalent of 40 pounds a year was back then. I don't think it's too much. But look at the phrasing. Passing rich with 40 pounds a year. Now, how do you pass rich? It is not in the quantum. You can't say, give me, well, definitely none of us will say 40 pounds. How much is enough to be rich? It's not in the quantum. What is it then? It is in the proportion. It's in the relationship. What makes you rich? What makes you poor? And the equation is your wealth more than your desires? So for this village preacher, he had 40 pounds a year, but his desires were at 30 pounds. Rich, content, happy. But as soon as it surpasses the 40 pounds and he has 50 pounds worth of desires, you become a poor person, a poor man, a poor woman. So what's the secret? The secret to being rich is whatever you have at the moment, let your desires be under that. You'll always feel abundant, enough, surplus. But if at any point you allow the desires to overtake the income, you will feel insufficient. You will feel the stress and tension of having less. But who decided the less? Not the bank, not any random quantum. You decided it. You decided that it's less and you made yourself poor. So you can literally be a billionaire, but you're not able to afford a company that is maybe 2 billion more. And how will you feel? Incomplete, insufficient, poor. You might look at the other billionaires and you say, I can't afford my own spaceship. And with that thought, you become a poor person. You might be a person living in a village and feel I have more than enough because your desires are contained. So this village preacher, he follows the equation, and I'll put it up on the screen for you to brand into your memory. To be rich is when your wealth is stronger than your desires. You become poor when your wealth is less than your desires. So no one is saying be stagnant. People think you have to be miserable, you have to be desperate in order to produce and achieve. No, be content at every point of the way, work for more. When your income increases, by all means, you can allow your desires to increase. But again, up to what limit? To within the assets, the income, the wealth. Beautiful practical advice. This is what the village preacher lives. The next quality is similar. It's as part of richness, it's being content. And coming back to the poem, this village preacher, he never wanted to change. So a man he was to all the country dear, and passing rich with 40 pounds a year. Remote from towns, he ran his godly race, nor ever had changed, nor wished to change his place. Unpracticed he to fawn or seek for power, by doctrines fashioned to the varying hour. This man is content. He's inspired by his goal. He doesn't feel a need to change. He doesn't feel a need to go out. This quality is a quality of introvert. You're content within yourself. You're sufficient with who you are, with what you have. The opposite of this is the extrovert. So the extrovert has to go out for their entertainment, for their satisfaction. Otherwise, restless. So I want all of you to think back, not too far away, 2 years ago, when most of the world was in lockdown. Were you restless? Were you itching to travel? Itching to see family, loved ones? Go out for a coffee, go for a movie, go skiing, maybe visit the academy? Were you itching? Were you restless? Or were you content? You were okay being at home. Why? Because you're introverted. So from my interaction with students and with family members and different people, I found those who studied this knowledge and had become introvert, not a problem at all. That lockdown period they described was heavenly, beautiful. I said, almost saying, I wish this could continue, indefinite lockdown. So content, so sufficient. But those who were extrovert, and we saw this with the world, frustrated. Because there's no vent for the desires, there's no vent for all that extroversion. And that's why we saw the increase during this lockdown period in frustration, in divorce, depression, mental health, etc. Why? This lack of being content within. This quality is one of the qualities of self-development. So if you are pursuing the spiritual path correctly, you will become self-sufficient. What this means is that you are less and less dependent on the world for your internal state and happiness. So put a mirror to yourself and find out on what external factors does your happiness rest on at the moment. These are the areas, these are the attachments to work on. It could be my partner's mood, my child doing well, my business profiting, politics in the region being stable. You could find so many, it could be the weather. If it's the weather, oh goodness, that is a roller coaster life. One day cheerful, next day miserable, like the weather. Oh, cloudy. That means you are cloudy. Today I'm foggy, a lot of fog. And then you think the person's schizophrenic. Why? Because they've made themselves dependent on changing factors. Be self-sufficient. And to be self-sufficient, you've got to have this internal strength. You're a prince. And that's what this village preacher is. So he's not interested in passing fashions because he understands passing fashions come and go. One day the glasses are small, frameless. Next day the glasses are big and heavy. And every month you're changing your glasses. Oh, this is the fashion for the top and this is the fashion for the sari. Because he has a higher ideal, he can't be bothered to keep up with fashions. You see, even these great thinkers, innovators, you see Steve Jobs, he had a pair of jeans and a black t-shirt. He standardized. Similarly with us, to get into wearing suits for formal occasions and then which tie goes with which suit, standardized. Formal attire, which is what? Indian traditional wear, but it's also our uniform for the institute. Elegant, formal, standardized. You don't vary with the fashions of the hour. And because you're self-sufficient, you don't feel inferior to anyone. You feel inferior when you want something others have. When you desire something from another person. So when you are not self-sufficient, when you have demands and desires, you become weak in that area. And how does your behavior change? Instead of being a commander, someone who doesn't want anything, we become a demander, a beggar. And our behavior changes, we become obsequious. If you want something from a particular person, you're nice to that person in the sense obsequious, where you're putting on, say, oh, how are you? You're so sickly sweet, is the expression. Oh, Vijay Bhai, how are you? Because you want something. See, this village preacher, he does not want anything from anyone. He is the opposite. He wants to serve. He wants to give. Therefore, he is the same with the president of a country. He is the same, as we'll see, with people who are failures. The beggar, the ruined spendthrift, the broken soldier, those who have nothing to render to him. He's the same. He expresses the same love, affection. Why? He's got no desire to take anything from them. Be yourself, unmoved by fashions. Now, what are we interested in? Where is our focus? Our focus is on fashions, changing things. The same Henry David Thoreau, he says, read not times, read the eternities. This is what we're studying. We're studying the eternities. Times change. What's happening today? But get to the eternal truths. Base your personality on that. You're set. You're made. So there's no inferiority. There's no selling yourself. There's no fawning. Unpracticed he to fawn or seek for power. He wasn't motivated by power, by doctrines fashioned to the varying hour. Next slide. Far other aims his heart had learned to prize, more skill to raise the wretched than to rise. This was his higher goal, his higher ideal, to raise the wretched, to help the poor. This was his higher ideal. It may not be yours, but there was a higher ideal in his life to benefit a larger circle, his community. And the next few lines show his compassion. So he wasn't inferior, nor was he superior. So often we slip into this stance as givers. We take that egoistic doership where we say, I am giving. I am knowledgeable. I'm sharing knowledge, the highest knowledge, Vedanta. No, it's not superiority either. It comes from the feeling of identification, oneness. You're my brother, my sister, a human being. The Atma. Atma means the spirit, the self. It's one. We're one. So where is the question of superior, inferior when you're one? We get into problems when? When do we get into problems? Anyone? When does all the trouble start? Superiority, inferiority, complexes, competition.
Comparison.
Comparison. one of the main enemies to our happiness. And why do we compare? Again, a lack of self-sufficiency. You be you. He will be he, she will be she. Now, why are you trying to be he? Or why are you trying to make she be like you? You will be you. You be the best version of yourself. That's it. No comparison. Why? Because the world is made up of different nuts and bolts, different talents. We studied the mountain and the squirrel earlier. The mountain has a place, the squirrel has a place. You say the mountain's big, but the squirrel is small. Smallness also has its role. When you see that, you understand this world is made up of different personalities, different talents. Let each one play their talent. You will be you. So, because there's no comparison, there's no complex, there's no feeling of being superior or inferior. You just see the humanity in each person. Whatever that person's nature is, that's what they're expressing. A lily expresses its nature, which is quaint and dainty, delicate, tender. The oak tree is broad and firm and strong. Each one expresses its nature. Why love one more than the other? Why get involved in the qualities? Why compare? It is what it is. What? All an expression of nature, of divinity, of the spirit, God. When you see that, you become truly spiritual. And this is what the village preacher saw. He saw it in his guests. So there was a constant chain of people passing through his house. It was open house. People knew they could find solace there. They could find solace, maybe a hot meal, maybe a warm bed. They would find comfort. His house was known to all the vagrant train. He chid their wanderings, but relieved their pain. The long-remembered beggar was his guest, whose beard descending swept his aged breast. The ruined spendthrift, now no longer proud, a wealthy person who maybe got himself into debt, spending left, right, center, no longer proud, he's poor now. Claim kindred there. Claim kindred means, look, I'm your friend's friend. I'm your nephew's financier. Whether it's right or wrong, he said, fine, no, you're most welcome. You're okay, you're my kin. Had his claims allowed. How magnanimous. Just come. You don't have to qualify why you deserve love. The broken soldier kindly bade you stay, sat by his fire and talked the night away. Look at the charitable disposition. Look, it's not just about giving accommodation. It's also about giving the person what they need. So for some, they need physical things, food, shelter. For some, they need emotion. For some, they need to be heard. Just listen. And this is something that took me some time. That because I've been trained to think with the intellect, we become problem solvers. But sometimes people talk to you not because they want solutions to their problems. They actually don't want advice at a particular time, maybe later, but sometimes they just want to vent, to share. Now, are you able to hold back and be caring, loving enough to identify what is that person's need. See, you might have something that you can give, but is that what they're looking for? See, you're giving food when the person wants emotion. You're not helping them. You might feel great. Your ego might get a kick. I've done good. I've done charity. Has it benefited them? Has it given them solace? So he understands the ruined spendthrift. His pride is there. How to nurture that pride, not to hurt it further. The broken soldier, how great he was. You know, like when there's a documentary called The Weight of Gold, and it talks about Olympic medalists, how they train and train for those few moments in the Olympics once in 4 years. Michael Phelps, Simone Biles, great athletes. But what about after the Olympics? There is just this desolateness. Purpose is gone. Relative, not the height of fame that it was, but there's this gap where they were in the limelight when they were performing, when they were swimming, when they were in the Olympics, then they're not, then there's a shadow. A person's a superstar when they're playing for the national team, and then they age, they drop. Then what? A person's at the peak of fame when the business is thriving, or when they're an actor or actress. As they get older, or new people come into the company, new people come into the industry, they're sidelined. How do you deal with that? And how do you identify that person's need? What would that person need? How can you help them? And this is the compassion that we're talking about. So look at his friends. The ruined spendthrift, the beggar, the broken soldier. Swamiji tells us that when he was young, he had 3 friends, similar to the village preacher. The one was the barber. He'd come every day, though you only need a haircut once in a few weeks. But he would come every day, they would talk. The other guy was Vaidya. A Vaidya is like a medicine man, but a traditional medicine man, putting all sorts of concoctions and herbs together and saying, this is the recipe, you have this, all your diseases will go. In fact, it's true. He had this Vaidya, he had a special remedy. He says, you have this, any disease, it'll take care of. You name it. COVID, no problem. You take this. But he's still in the final touches of the final stages of his R&D, because no doubt any patient who takes his remedy, the disease goes. The only thing he hasn't worked out is the disease goes, but the patient also goes. So if he just takes care of that aspect, he'll be a multi-million-dollar business. So Swamiji's mother would say, look, you can take any oils or anything from this, anything external you can buy from this medicine man, but nothing internal. No pills, no herbs and tonics, nothing. So Swamiji would support him, would give him business. And the other person was number 38. He used to work in a factory. And these 3 friends, they would come and they would visit Swamiji's house, have a meal there. And Swamiji is saying that when he left Chennai to go and study this knowledge in Powai, Mumbai, to go and study in an ashram, these 3 were distraught. And they all kept a picture by their puja of Swamiji. That time he wasn't a Swami, but they knew that there was something different about this man. And we have seen it as students here at the academy, where one of the gardeners, he had such a relationship with Swamiji. He only speaks Marathi, the local language here in Maharashtra, in this part of India. And Swamiji doesn't know a word of Marathi. And this fellow doesn't know a word of English. And they are best friends. He's a gardener. His clothes, I don't know. Maybe on special occasions, he changes his clothes, takes a bath. Swamiji and him, hand in hand, arm in arm, walking around the campus. If he comes, anytime he comes, Swamiji has time for him. I don't know what they talk. The transaction is not words, it's love. If he comes during breakfast, Swamiji will move Amma a little bit, and Ganpat, the gardener, will come and sit between them. And Amma is saying, please, tell him, take a bath. Swamiji will give him a fresh set of clothes, send him on his way. So what is that? That's not a relationship of enlarged egotism. There's no symbiotic attachment there. It's free. It's not because I want something from you. It's not vice versa. It's just free. It's just pure affection. No strings attached. Beautiful. How many relationships do we have like this? Forget that. Whatever relationships we have, let's try and cut the strings. Let the relationship be free and see the difference. See how the other person would reciprocate when they know there's no expectation on the other side. Now keep in mind that this compassion is not just weak pity. It is backed with the intellect. And the clue here is he chid their wanderings. So it's not that he just gave. He scolded them. He said, what are you doing wandering around the street like this? Why haven't you eaten? Why aren't you taking care of yourself? Why haven't you applied for a job? So he chid their wanderings. He scolded them. Whatever correction was necessary, he scolded. So it's not just giving indiscriminately. So the feeling is you always want to give, but through the intellect. So he sat by his fire and talked the night away, wept over his wounds or tales of sorrow done, shouldered his crutch and showed how fields were won. Pleased with his guests, the good man learned to glow. He was happy in their company and quite forgot their vices in their woe. You're not involved in their qualities. Whether this person is like that, that person is like this person's a human being. If I can share something, if I can offer something, I'm at their disposal. But this person did this and this person did that. He's a human being, right? Again, not indiscriminate. But the feeling should not have any boundaries, but the action, the giving, you have to be careful. Who are you giving to? And quite forgot their vices in their woe, careless their merits or their faults to scan, he doesn't care. His pity gave, charity began. So the compassion was there. Then came the charity. Charity means he would think about it, whatever's necessary for that person. And that's what we're encouraging. The compassion is not just good for others, it's good for you. If you want to have the best sleep, develop compassion, practice unselfishness. Let's continue with the poem. Thus, to relieve the wretched was his pride, and even his failings leaned to virtue's side. And because he's unselfish, even if he made a mistake, because it's unselfish, it errs to virtue's side. But in his duty prompted every call, he watched and wept, he prayed and felt for all. And how is this person in action, an ideal person? They are not, when we get an idea of content, we think they're complacent. We think there's no action. No, that's not it. They're dynamic. Full of action, full of activity, prompt. The Swamiji's father used to teach these poems to Swamiji and Swamiji's brother when they were young. Prompt in his duty at every call. For when? When the telephone rings, the father will shout out, prompt in his duty at every call. And there will be a race. Who gets the phone? Today's household, when the phone rings, nobody is going for it. Everyone is saying, oh, can you do it? The doorbell rings. Why? Amazon is there. Prompt in his duty at every call. Now nobody's answering the door. Be prompt in your duty. So this stuck in Swamiji's mind. So you see how it's passed on, the values. And Swamiji told us this story, and now it's passed on to us. So whether we consciously or subconsciously, it's there. When the doorbell rings, this line rings in my head. But prompt in his duty at every call. It applies to so many things. When you set the alarm and the alarm rings, wake up. Why? But prompt in his duty at every call. It's my duty. One of the noblest things of a human being is just to do your duty. We studied Casabianca about this young boy who followed his father's word implicitly. Unfortunate that he perished. But what was highlighted is how steadfast he is to his duty. India, duty is, it's raised to a divine quality. In fact, you find all the most popular movies in India, they all have this great theme of duty and sacrifice. The epics, Mahabharata, Ramayana, the great epics of India, all based on duty. Beautiful quality. If it's your duty, do it. Be dynamic, be active. And then we spoke about the village preacher's magnetism, because he's a giver. So back to the text. And as a bird, each fond endearment tries to tempt its new-fledged offspring to the skies. He tried each art, reproved each dull delay, allured to brighter worlds, and led the way. Beside the bed where parting life was laid, and sorrow, guilt, and pain by turns dismayed, the reverend champion stood. At his control, despair and anguish led the struggling soul. Comfort came down the trembling wretch to raise, and his last faltering accents whispered praise. What a service. A person who's on his deathbed. Imagine, at the end, as he's parting, he's thinking about God, he's praising God. What a way to go. So this was the village preacher. He had that presence. Instead of fear, instead of uncertainty, insecurity of the unknown, we don't know what death is, what awaits us. The village preacher gave him strength. He gave him conviction, faith. His last faltering accent, he's dying. This person, he whispered praise. God is great. Life is great. At church, with meek and unaffected grace, his looks adorned the venerable place. Truth from his lips prevailed with double sway, and fools who came to scoff remained to pray. The service passed around the pious man. With steady zeal, each honest rustic ran. Even children followed with endearing wile, and plucked his gown to share the good man's smile. And ready his smile, a parent's warmth expressed, their welfare pleased him and their cares distressed. This is the magnetism of a spiritual person. In Sanskrit, it's called tejas. It means luster. It means spiritual luster. It means there's a light, there's a magnetism about their personality. There's an aura, as it were. Okay, so often when we depict spiritual personalities, people actually draw an aura. It's more an aura that you feel. And what is that aura from? That aura is from these higher values. It's from the lack of ego minus selfishness. It's from being service-oriented. The beauty is you can feel it. So even a child, without discrimination, without the assessment, is attracted to this person. Even those who came to scoff remain to pray. Imagine, they came to be cynical, they came to insult, but they found themselves in the presence of something pure, something noble, something higher. They came to scoff. Look at this guy, hey, the preacher, and remain to pray. It is not what you say, it is who you are. It's an inside out change. Now you might try to act saintly, spiritual, calm, charitable, and look, these are noble qualities to try to be, but you've got to try to get them from the inside. It means you got to understand it. We've got to get our thoughts to get it. And when it clicks inside, then it changes here. There's in the scriptures, it says there are different types of service. There's physical service, there's emotional service, there's material service first, physical, emotional, intellectual. So it gives the gradation of services. But they say the highest service is to go within, to study and unfold yourself, the spirit. Why? Because when you unfold the self, your spirit, that is what you communicate to others. So it's not your words that communicate. You might be a great lecturer. You might have a way with words, but what communicates is the self. There are these saints who never spoke. There is a saint in India in the 1950s, 60s. His name was Ramana Maharishi. He never spoke. Thousands, hundreds of thousands went to his ashram just to be in his presence. You can feel the divinity. There are those who spoke as well. They were fantastic. Even now, if you read some of the works of Swami Ramatirtha, you can feel the attraction in this personality. You read the book and your hands shake because his words are so powerful. You feel it in the words, in the lines. When you are unselfish, when you have identified with the spirit, that is what attracts you. You find, and is shown in the scriptures, even animals come to this person. The sage Valmiki, outside his cottage in the forest, he would have deers there, he would have the tiger, he would have the monkeys, he would have the bear. What is going on here? All attracted to this personality. That's what it meant. Even animals, without any discrimination, no, there's something beautiful here. What? The self, the spirit. Now we've covered quite a few qualities of this village preacher. We've covered frugality, love, rich, content, being self-sufficient, compassionate, being dynamic in action, being magnetic. But the two famous metaphors we haven't covered, and I don't want to rush it. So we'll take it up in the beginning of the next session. It is the metaphor of the mother bird luring the chick out of the nest. And the second one is about the cliff and the clouds. So I'll leave it as a trailer. These two metaphors are the highlight in the poem. And because they convey such great qualities, we must give it its due respect and time. To be continued. So first, the village preacher. What are some of the qualities of the village preacher that we learned about last week? Those that inspired you, that come to mind.
Selfless.
Selfless. Okay. Anyone else?
Simplicity.
Simplicity. So one of the first qualities that we mentioned, that simplicity, being frugal. And the simplicity is not lack of sophistication or lack of knowledge. It is a simplicity because of austerity. And we explained austerity in a threefold manner. We said austerity was about avoiding dissipation of energy, conserving it. So one is you don't waste it. The other is you conserve the energy that you have. And then most importantly, you direct it towards a higher goal that you fixed. Because the village preacher was dedicated to serving his fellow person, his fellow human beings, he did not care about the non-essentials in life. He had a mission, he had a purpose. So frugal, selflessness. Selflessness is difficult to conceive. Let's say unselfish. He had a higher ideal that he was dedicated towards. And that makes us ask the question to ourselves, what are we working for? What is our higher ideal? We spoke about the village preacher's richness, that he always felt he had more than enough because he was able to manage his desires. Wealth greater than the desires, you're a wealthy person. And one quality that should stand out, and try and keep this in mind because it is the hallmark of an evolved human being. How self-sufficient are you? How independent are you of the world? Independent does not mean that you're living in a cave or you're living in a village, far removed. You can be in the thick of it. You can be in the midst of business and family, socializing, but you do not need it to complete you. You do not need it to feel normal. You do not need it to feel content. This village preacher was ever content. He had a heart. So it's not just this high intellect, self-sufficient and frugal, working towards a higher ideal. His feelings went to all. A genuine identification, compassion. But he was dynamic, prompt in his duty. Remember that? When the phone rings, but prompt in my duty at every call. Rush to pick up the phone. Answer the door. Wake up in the morning with the first alarm ring. Prompt in your duty. It was magnetic. Because he was a giver, because he was looking to share, he had this magnetic personality. People were attracted to him. Now, the last two metaphors are well known in literature lobbies because they're so well crafted and there are various degrees of comparison that we can take it. So we'll study the first one. The first one is the bird metaphor, and I'll put it up on the screen for you. It says, how was the village preacher to his followers, to his congregation, to the villagers? And as a bird, each fond endearment tries to tempt its new-fledged offspring to the skies. He tried each art, reproved each dull delay, allured to brighter worlds, and led the way. What is this verse talking about? What can we extract from this verse for our practical living?
Persistence and also leading by example.
Leading by example. Persistence. He tried each art. Okay.
Yeah.
What else?
Love, I think.
Love. Yes. If we examine it, it's a beautiful metaphor on being a leader.
Yeah.
How does the bird draw its fledglings, the babies, the baby chicks? How does it draw it out of the nest? So the nest represents the comfort, its particular level that it's at. So it's got to draw the fledglings out of the nest. How? Perhaps by offering a little bit of food. So they have to stretch their necks. And then when they stretch, it steps back a little. And then it has to make that step to come out. But what is its method of education? There are two aspects that it gives. And this is where, as a parent, as a leader, it's useful. He's a preacher, and yet he does not sermonize. He shows the way, as Paresh mentioned. He leads the way with his actions. A Lord to brighter worlds. So a Lord to brighter worlds means it shows a better way of living. And that way of living, that lifestyle, attracts the fledglings to follow. Similarly, as a parent, you can have all the advice, all the knowledge. Your child will not follow you. In fact, we make a double fault. We want to offload the knowledge we have. And the moment we start, depending how old the child is, Dad, please. Mom, enough. Oh, I've heard this 100 times. Isn't this the reaction? Lead the way. Be a lighthouse. Make yourself attractive. That becomes the guide. A Lord to brighter worlds. But it's not that you're soft. He tried each art. So you've got to find out which is the best method for those who follow you. Which is the most effective way of communicating with them? For some, it is suggestion. For some, it's not saying anything at all, just leading the way. You've got to find out how to get it through. What is the method to reach this person? Reproved each dull delay. So it's not that he was soft. So where he found there was undue delay, he was stern. You find these great masters, though they're absolutely calm, independent, serene inside, sometimes we see a very strong, striking, almost harsh side. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says, Uttishta, means awaken, arise. For those of you who've been following Swamiji, you can, sometimes Swamiji is fiery. And you wonder, why that tone? And it's deliberate. So it's not that they're losing their temper. It's not that they are fired up or overwhelmed with the passion, but they try to communicate the urgency of getting onto the path. Now, here is this bird. What does the nest represent? This nest represents the limited, confined world that all of us are living in. Our world is confined to petty pleasures of the body, the mind, and the intellect. We go about begging. What? We go about begging to a restaurant. Satisfy us with good food. We go to an exotic destination. Satisfy us with beautiful sights, nice weather. We go about begging for our pleasure, for our peace, for our happiness. This is the nest. This is the confines that we've become used to. What the village preacher shows us, or these great masters, is you're missing out on the sky. You have wings. Now, what is the metaphor for the wings? As a human being, your birthright is self-realization, complete independence, absolute bliss. That's what you are heir to. That is your original natural state of being. And yet we have become conditioned to believe that we are insufficient, that we lack. It's not true. And yet there's no effort in this direction. There's a complacency. I'm okay in my nest. I don't need Vedanta. I don't need any more knowledge. I'm all right. I'm doing okay. You're missing out on the sky. For those of you who watch the flight of birds, especially those living in the city, and if you have sometimes, like in Mumbai, for instance, on South Mumbai, there's a hill. It's called Vakeshwar. And at the top of the hill, there's a park. And from the park, you can see the entire bay of Mumbai. That's called the Queen's Necklace or Marine Drive. And if you watch from that peak, a bird with just a few flaps, one flap, it goes from this park to the shore below. Something that would have taken you maybe 20 minutes to walk, 10 minutes to drive, and then it flaps again and it's gone to the other side of the bay, the Air India building, the Oberoi. Other side of the bay in just a few flaps. That is the freedom of a bird. We don't know it. So it's trying to allure us to this brighter world. And that's what the knowledge is. The knowledge is not scolding us. Look, you will suffer with your attachments. It's true. But it's also showing us the brighter side, the freedom and bliss that you will enjoy. So the metaphor there is the nest represents the mundane world. And the brighter world, the skies, is the bliss and freedom of the self within, which we do not know at the moment. So this is the first metaphor. The second metaphor is about his objectivity. I'll put it up on the screen for you. Another masterpiece. He gives the metaphor of a cliff. So here is this village preacher interacting with the villagers. To them his heart, his love, his griefs were given, but all his serious thoughts had rest in heaven. As some tall cliff that lifts its awful form, swells from the vale and midway leaves the storm, though round its breast the rolling clouds are spread, eternal sunshine settles on its head. Wow. Now let's take it apart. He has love, he has emotions, and he shares these emotions with the villagers. So it describes a person who has the knowledge, but just because they have a strong intellect does not mean they don't have emotions. A human being is both a feeling and a thinking being. To have no feelings makes you a stone, a statue, a plant. To have feelings and be overcome by feelings is an animal. You can't control your passions. But to have feelings, to feel one with another person, to understand the trauma they're going through, perhaps through illness or loss, fear, anxiety, to understand what the person is going through, that's feeling. But to not be affected by it. When you hear the plight of a loved one, you're not able to sleep, you're not able to eat. It keeps you awake. You're concerned, you're worried. May not be able to attend a class. You're concerned. There's a difference. And the difference here is you feel, but you do not allow the feeling to interfere with your decision making and your course of action. So whatever needs to be done at that moment, your intellect is absolutely clear what needs to be done. So where are the emotions? The emotions are at the chest level, at the heart. But when it comes to decision making, the head is always clear. And that's the metaphor of the cliff. So the cliff, it's tall, it reaches the summit. It's so high that the storm and the clouds and the rain, it's all at the chest level of the cliff. But the peak is always attuned to the sun. Eternal sunshine settles on its head. This village preacher, because he's attuned to the self, to God, to higher ideals and values, his intellect is fixed on that, does not get affected by the emotions and sentiments that he goes through. So it's not that he doesn't have sentiments and emotions, he has them, but he doesn't become sentimental, emotional, passionate. To have them is a virtue. Emotions, sentiments, passions. But when they overtake your personality, when you're not able to think clearly, when you lose your objectivity, when you get involved, you become sentimental, emotional, passionate, a victim of the emotions, a victim of the mind. A human being, biologically, by design, we say that the mind is like the heart. It's actually subtler than a physical organ, but let's say, in common language, we say it's the heart. The intellect is the brain, the head. Head is above the heart. This is a human life. Animal life, on all fours. Head and heart are same level. You see that? Human life is, head must always be clear. This is what this knowledge does to us. It elevates us from the rolling clouds, from the storm of emotions, from the fluctuations, the ups and downs of life. It elevates us beyond the valley to the peak. And when you're at the peak, you don't get affected. Or depending how high up, you get less affected. There are less undulations. It's called objectivity. It's not easy. I don't know if you've experienced nurses and doctors. They have to give so much of emotion, so much of care. So they're identifying with it. Psychologists, counselors, but they're listening to the problems of others And very few have the intellect to be objective to the patient, to the client. So you find they take to distraction. All sorts of distractions so that they can stop, switch off when they go home. Or they go to the other extreme. So either they distract because it's so much, the person's scenario, the trauma of what the person has gone through, the story, perhaps of abuse or of injury or accident. It replays in the head. It stays with them. So to shut it off, they look for some kind of distraction, sleeping pills, alcohol, etc. Or they stop seeing the person as a person. It's just a case. It's just a project. So a surgeon may prefer to treat a person as, this is just a case, just a study, a job. Tries not to identify with the human being inside the body. But as a human being, it is possible to have all the emotion. It need not be segregated. It need not be separated. You have the emotion, but your intellect is always clear, never victimized. This is objectivity. There's a quote by the Bhagavad Gita. It says, and it's talking about, again, the leadership of this person. And it's how, if we are to share objectivity with another, if we're going to lead the way, how will others be objective? We've got to show it. We've got to see that. That's what our children will pick up. It says, whatsoever the superior person does, that alone other people do. Whatever standard he sets, that the world follows. So you might find a person who is extremely service-oriented, but very distraught, agitated. Here's the village preacher. He never loses his charm. He never loses his contentment, his smile. Although he's there with a person on his deathbed. He's there in their woes, in their troubles. But always calm, always happy. And the last quote for this poem. What is that sun that he's ever attuned to, that keeps him objective? And it is this. A quote by Cicero. He says, the first duty of a human is the seeking after and the investigation of truth. The first duty of a human is the seeking after and the investigation of truth. We spoke about how the village preacher is prompt in his duty. His highest duty, his ever attunement is to truth. So if we can conceive our truth, our North Pole, our North Star, and fix our compass on that, life will be life. There will be days of days of joy. There will be days of sorrow. There will be pleasures. There will be treasures. And there will be disappointments. But if you are fixed on the truth, your path is unswerving. Your spirit remains unbroken. Eternal sunshine settles on its head. If you're not objective, if you're not involved, what does it mean? You're at the level of the clouds. Rise yourself. The Sanskrit word is uttishta. Rise, rise, elevate, elevate. How do you elevate, friends? How do you get to the summit?
The effort.
Steady effort. Vijay, you're on mute.
What did I say? Okay, that was what.
Steady effort.
Yeah.
What is the effort?
Ideal.
A higher taste.
Higher truths. Shweta?
Yes, I was about to say the same thing, trying to seek the truth, trying to figure out what your truth is.
It is through knowledge. Knowledge of higher truths. Why will you leave the nest if you do not know the sky? So our effort is to gain in a methodic manner higher truths, higher knowledge. Where in your life, where in your day is that? Now you might say, oh, Sudhakar, what is this? We're spending an hour on higher truths. What is 1 hour compared to 1 week? Insignificant. And yet, it is these higher truths that will make a difference to the way you see every aspect of life. Invest that time. Make it a part of your day. The suggestion is early morning. This is the village preacher.